CM Punk's back in the WWE, and hell has certainly froze over. His return was the top headline in sports entertainment, leading to extremely high social media engagement for the WWE, an increase in their ratings, and a lot of merch sales. Punk is one of the biggest names in the modern era, and his controversial attitude is a major factor in his publicity. He's had fallouts and rivalries with many in the wrestling scene, so naturally, many don't like him. In fact, it'd be easier to create a list of wrestlers who don't have beef with him. Regardless, the following is a list of 10 people who hate Punk the most. Note that some obvious entries such as the WWE's executives are not on this list since Punk's return to the company. At number 10 we've got Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston and CM Punk had similar beginnings, with Punk getting his big break much earlier. The two indie darlings finally shared the big stage in AEW. We got the fireworks that we expected as they're excellent on the mic, and because they have that real life heat. Kingston doesn't like the Second City Saint for apparently being arrogant, selling out to the big leagues, and not doing enough to uplift his peers on the indies. Meanwhile, Punk believes that Kingston is lazy, that he never improved himself and hence, he never lived up to his potential. They put on an excellent program in AEW for which Kingston gave credit to their issues with each other. Kingston said that he was so into the whole thing that it really affected his mental health. That being said, he recently mentioned that he wishes Punk was still with AEW as he helped the company, so there is respect on his part despite not liking Punk. At number 9 we've got Lana. Rusev and Lana were one of the top acts in WWE back in 2019, and at the time were having a cringy angle with Bobby Lashley. Punk was briefly a part of WWE backstage during this time, and suggested a matchup involving them. He hilariously stated that Rusev and Lashley should team up against a team of Lana's choosing, with the ravishing one being suspended in a shark cage above them. Punk tweeted, "Loser keeps Lana match. Just bucked you through Mania, Chica. You're welcome." Lana wasn't too happy about these tweets, and she tweeted back at him, suggesting to refrain from these misogynistic comments like Chica for the sake of the network. This is the mildest rivalry on the list, and isn't known if the two have made amends as Punk didn't cross paths with Lana in AEW. At number 8 we've got Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho may have beaten The Rock and Stone Cold on the same night, but not even he could escape CM Punk's hit list. Jericho and CM Punk have had a rocky history. They were reportedly on good terms in WWE, with Punk even bailing Jericho out of jail once. However, since Punk's controversy at AEW All Out 2022, their relationship has soured. Jericho reportedly was furious at Punk calling him a disgrace to the locker room. Punk lashed out at Y2J on social media calling him a stooge and a liar. Reports also indicate that he lobbied against a program with him on AEW Collision. Jericho gave a statement after Punk's release calling it regretful how things ended up. Jericho very recently stated on Twitter that he wanted a match with Punk in AEW. Their feud in 2012 was very well received, as they put on a clinic at WrestleMania 28 and Extreme Rules. It's unlikely that we'll see these two titans collide again, as Jericho is an AEW loyalist, while Punk is the Antichrist for the company. At number 7 we've got Hornswoggle. Hornswoggle also dislikes Punk, as mentioned in a shoot interview. He told Sean Oliver that he used to be very close with Punk, but then they had a falling out. He said that he lost his phone and asked Punk for a phone number of a mutual friend they had. However, Punk was offended and took it as Swoggle's way of using him. Punk hasn't directly responded to this, but he has talked about other wrestlers using his name to grab hits on that infamous Colt Cabana podcast. It's tough to say if we'll ever see the two former friends reconcile. At number 6 we've got Elijah Burke. Most people know Elijah Burke as D'Angelo De Niro in TNA, but are unaware that he also wrestled on WWE's ECW brand. This is where he wrestled Punk, who was a fan favourite up-and-comer back in the day. Burke doesn't like the straight-edge superstar due to some unflattering comments he made about him. Basically, Punk was on some radio show where he talked about Burke, calling him absolutely the worst, and a diva, which is pretty rich coming from Punk. But these comments disappointed Burke. He responded in an interview saying that he expected Punk to say these things to his face, like he had to him back in the day. Burke was professional about it, saying that he wasn't going to respond as Punk wasn't there to defend himself, and these two haven't mentioned each other since. Before we get into number 5, Like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video, I'd really appreciate that. At number 5 we've got AJ Styles. The only similarity between Punk and AJ Styles is that they're two of the best wrestlers of the modern age. Otherwise, they're poles apart, especially in the world of politics. By looking at their social media, one can easily tell that Punk is more liberal while Styles is more conservative. Back in June 2020, Styles was one of the people targeted by Punk for not speaking out about the BLM protests. Styles responded in an interview saying that he is apolitical as he's all about business. He said that he doesn't respect Punk, so he won't react, and also called him an attention seeker. It's said that the two greats used to be close in the indies until Styles left ROH for TNA, which didn't sit well with Punk. With Punk in the WWE now, fans are hoping that the two have a dream match on the big stage, and we all can hope that they put their differences aside to put on a show. At number 4 we've got Teddy Hart. Now Punk and Teddy Hart were in TNA at the very same time. A recipe for disaster considering Hart's very own annoying backstage attitude. Hart has gotten on the bad side of so many greats, and as expected, the two reportedly had several run-ins during Punk's time in TNA, which eventually led to a scuffle. According to most witness accounts, Punk was eating at some cafe when Hart walked in and instigated the fight. Punk then agreed to fight Hart outside the restaurant. The two went at it and had to be separated by the wrestlers there, which included hardcore wrestling legend Sabu. The fight lasted about half a minute with Hart claiming the victory, but most other witnesses calling it a stalemate. Hart probably thanks his stars that this was pre-UFC Punk, otherwise it might have not turned out well for him. He got fired for the incident, and suspiciously, Punk also didn't appear on TNA programming again. At number 3 we've got Ryback. Ryback is one of the most controversial wrestlers in the modern era. He was brought into the WWE as the second coming of Bill Goldberg. However, Ryback was even greener and didn't have the presence that Goldberg did. His feud with Punk is infamous as it's one of the reasons why Punk left WWE in the first place. Ryback has accused Punk of numerous things, including sabotaging him in front of the Shield and being jealous of his merch sales. Punk's dislike of Ryback stems from the time he caused Punk a concussion. Ryback thrown him headfirst onto the concrete after missing a table meant to break Punk's fall. But a couple of months ago, Ryback did extend the olive branch to Punk and apologise to him. However, he also said that he'll retire if Punk returns at Survivor Series. And then Punk returned, and he quickly changed his tune after Survivor Series, now saying that he'll retire if Punk's WWE tenure lasts more than 6 months. He also called out Punk fans for being bitter. Ryback's clearly using Punk's name for clout, if you ask me. It should be noted that his social media behaviour has isolated him from most of the wrestling community, and most don't want anything to do with him. At number 2, we've got Tony Khan and the Elite. Now CM Punk's troubles in AEW began as soon as his storyline feud with Hangman Page began. According to Punk, Page went off script during their rivalry and didn't make a big deal out of it back then. There were also rumours circulating that Punk had attempted to get former bestie Colt Cabana fired from AEW. Post All Out, Punk went on a rampage at the press conference, with an anxious Tony Khan sitting next to him. He made the accusations against Hangman, and accused the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega for making up the rumours and leaking them. This was followed by an altercation between Punk and the Elite, which led to their suspension. Punk took this time off to heal his injuries, with the whole wrestling community speculating what could come next. He returned after a 9-month absence, and things were going well until he had another physical altercation. This time it was with Jack Perry at Wembley Stadium, and this was the last straw, as Tony Khan fired Punk, claiming that this was the first time his life was in danger at a wrestling show. And it's very unlikely that these men will ever make amends, let alone cross paths in the future. And finally at number 1 we've got Colt Cabana. Finally, we have a classic story of friends turned foes, as Colt Cabana is the only one on this list who has actually pursued legal action against Punk. Punk and Cabana were best friends for 20 years, and Cabana even had the honour of hosting Punk on his podcast to hear his first remarks after leaving the WWE. The two also faced a collective lawsuit from the WWE and won the case. However, this is where things changed as Cabana accused Punk of not covering his legal fees and sued him. Punk countersued, and they reached a settlement, but Cabana didn't get any richer from the mess. Punk has tweeted that he wanted the case to go to trial, as he was in the right, and that Cabana was afraid of losing, so he wanted to settle. Punk was also accused of wanting Cabana fired from AEW, and this was one of the reasons for his explosive press conference at All Out 2022. He even claimed that he paid Cabana's bills, until he didn't. Cabana only wrestled once in AEW after this incident, and has only wrestled in AEW's ROH, and he still, to this day, hasn't commented on the situation. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and click here for another. And if you want to support us further and become one of the Dawgs yourself, join our Patreon using the link in the description. Nice one.